Good afternoon, everyone. You were not expecting that, so I'm going to say it again. Good afternoon, everyone. Those who are in person and online, thanks for all attending JSL Day, the second since the IPO of 2020. I hope it is a very profitable afternoon to all of us, both again for those who are in person or that are with us remotely. And we are going to also talk on chat. You're going to ask questions. I'm going to talk about later on, but we'll all be together. And it's a pleasure to have you here. Just to start, some general information. For those of you who are in the room, the back of the room, you have water and coffee. I know you've tried that before, juice. You have the restrooms, some sweets that look good and are possibly tasting good as well. In the end of the event, we are going to have a Q&A session. So we are going to have the presentations. You're going to see, the presentations, and then if you have a question, you raise your hands, we take the mic to you, and for those of you who are online, you ask the questions on the chat box, and we are going to ask your questions. If we don't have time to answer everyone, JSL and the organizers are going to answer you on email so that we don't have open questions. Ramon Alcaraz, JSL's CEO, and Guilherme Sampaio, JSL CFO, are going to be with us all the time, as well as Thiago Serafim and Pereira that are going to be here. Fernando Simões, the chairman of JSL, is also going to be with us. So let's talk about this giant company. If I understood it correctly, you grew by 150%, right, Guilherme? Okay, unique positioning in the logistic market. JSL has a unique business model that allowed for its growth, both in size and profitability. Let's understand more about this model and why JSL is positioned as it is. At the end of the presentation, for those of you who are here, as I mentioned before, we are going to have a cocktail party. You had some drinks and beverages before, and we are going to have one also at the end of our presentation. So to start, we are going to call Ramon Alcaraz and Guilherme Sampaio to the floor. Let's give them a hand. Welcome. Guilherme, please take one mic. Ramon, take another. Thank you very much. Okay, good morning, not good morning, good afternoon. Very good afternoon, everyone. Thanks all for coming. As some of these faces were already on Simpar Day last week, others are new, so thank you very much. So our idea in a light, relaxed way is to show a bit more about JSL. More and more, we are giving you more granularity on the company and the work that we are very proud of. And in the end, we are going to interact in the Q&A session. Very relaxed and easygoing event. Well, in short, we are going to be here for the whole amount of time, 2 hours, give or take, to prove what this slide is saying. Clearer and clearer competitive advantages for JSL, and because of a management model that ensures growth with profitability. Growing is one thing, but growing with profitability is a step further. We've been through years in which the economy helped. In 2023, as you know, the economy did not help as much. It kind of moved sideways in many segments, but we, at a different speed, a different pace, continued with strong growth and very interesting profitability, as we are going to show. But basically, throughout this time we're going to be together, we want to try and prove these statements to you. So to start, Let's go for a video that's about 2.5 minutes long to show you a bit about JSL. And then we are going to carry on with our presentation. So, first video, please. Some companies are unique. They are part of the history, are present on the day-to-day of society, and build the future. This is JSL. We are everywhere in the lives of people and in their businesses. In the almost 70 years, we got to each corner of Brazil and 7 other countries. Since 2001, JSL has been the largest logistics company in the country. Always trying to be better and bigger. New projects, new economic segments, new companies that join us and grow with us. Many JSLs in one. Giant like Brazil, conquering the world. We have scale, and our numbers speak for themselves. 30,000 employees, 23,000 assets, 8 acquisitions in the last 3 years, 2.8 billion in investments, 10 billion reals in revenues, 1.5 billion EBITDA. What is the secret? There is no secret. This is our DNA, what we learn to do. Our business model is unique. Our portfolio is diversified. We have operations in more than 18 sectors of the economy with a solid growing foundation of customers. We have technology on board. We manage each customer, each contract one by one, as if it were the only one. We are integrated logistics players, providing services at all parts of the logistics chain, with transportation, dedicated operations, warehousing, distribution in urban centers, with really movement in the real economy, agribusiness, pulp and paper, mining, automotive, chemicals, foods, beverages, retail, several segments of the economy. And there is more. We have become the largest portfolio of logistics services in a country full of opportunities because we never stop. We accrue knowledge, evolve with our customers. Our people never stop. They develop and make the difference. Resilience comes from our business model, the history that we write every day, always understanding to serve. You see, we have scale, history, the foundation to do more. Services are very diversified, but the way to manage the business is unique, with people that are prepared in the right place and with discipline to understand customer needs, to provide services with excellence, and to be close to ensure performance. Leadership that generates scale, that generates values to our customers, our people, and our shareholders. With all that together, you can bet JSL is simply irreplicable. We are proud of our history, and we have the willingness to grow of those who are just starting. JSL. Well, folks, this was the video. Just to introduce our talk. And we're talking about competitive advantages. Sorry. I was going to say competitive advantages, but I was not seeing that. So what are our competitive advantages? Leadership. The largest platform of logistics services in Brazil, the largest company. You have, we brought out an award that I got at lunchtime, one more year as best logistic operation in cargo transportation. This is the 36th year that we have this ranking in the Transporte Moderno magazine. I'm even attached to that because I remember well the very first ranking 36 years ago. I was a trainee, and it feels like it was yesterday. You know, we say 36 years to young people. They think it's 1,000 years ago. But I remember I felt proud of working at the best and largest company at the time. But this company no longer exists. And if you go back to the 10 largest companies, most of them don't exist. Companies of some decades ago. We are going to show that further on. If we get to the companies that have been in the ranking in the last 15 to 20 years, you see that they change a lot in ranking, and JSL has been there for 22 years. That is very hard. I've been in the business for 40 years, and I can say that for sure that there is no other company in road transportation that has been leader for so long. And this is the fruit of the work and of what we are going to talk about today. Being first is one thing, but keeping as first for 22 years is completely different. Diversification, we talk about that a lot, and this is also something that is very different from JSL compared to its players. Diversification of sectors, more than 16 sectors, we're going to show that to you. And with different services, we are in the logistics services from, raw material services, going through primary, secondary industries, movements, handling, transportation between plants, between distribution centers, inbound services, transfer to smaller distribution centers until getting to the end consumer, not exactly in the last mile, but very close to that in urban distribution. We are just not in last mile because we understand this is still not a service that is profitable from our perspective in a company with our portfolio, but we are in the chain as a whole. So with diversification of services and sectors, that gives us resilience and a natural hedging, especially in economies and in times of the economy that are more unstable, not only Brazil and the world. There is always one sector that is more affected than another, but not the same way. And that explains why our growth is so detached from the Brazilian economy or GDP growth. And no one can be leader for such long without excellence. At the end of the day, we do not manufacture anything. We provide services, and services require people. I said that on Simpler Day, and I'm going to say it again. Our customers really don't care if we are the largest or not. They want to have the service they hired provided well. Quite the opposite. They would prefer they were the only customers we had. That's how they wanted to be treated, as if we were a small company and depended on them 100%. At the same time, they want to have the guarantee and the comfort of a large company. And that's the science, to be a large company with all the advantages of being large, but in terms of excellence, being practically, unique to that customer in terms of quality, excellence, services, etc. Because in the end of the day, most cases, we are essential for that business. That is, if we do not provide logistics services, the plant can come to a halt. Consumers may not receive products. It's no use manufacturing if we don't deliver. And proof of that is the percentage of cross-selling we achieved in recent years. Last year, I think we released 85%. This year, we are at 90%. There's still much room to grow in our customers. We are going to show that. But it all starts here. Capacity of growth, and size really matters. We had a significant change in our assets in terms of appreciation of assets, machinery. Many sometimes, take longer, but because we are in the Simpar ecosystem together with Vamos, together with Movida, and together with Vamos, we are by far the largest buyer of trucks and machinery in Brazil. We have more competitive prices and also more appealing payment terms that make a difference to our customers. But growing for the sake of growing is not enough. As I said in the beginning, many of our competitors grew, and a lot. But what I tell you, in the almost 40 years I've been in the market, I do not know any company that goes bankrupt by growing, by shrinking. It's basically because they grow wrong, especially in Brazil, when you have high interest rates. So growing with profitability, growing with wisdom is very important, and the capacity to invest. Again, a huge advantage of being in a system like the one in Simpar, because that gives us access to credit, which is a difficulty of our competitors, and also more competitive interest rates. We're all paying high interest rates because that is what we have in Brazil. But certainly the spread is hardly going to be more competitive than ours. What I say always is that our problem is not all the variables that are complicators of the business, economy, interest rates, because, it rains on everyone. What is important is that in adversities, we have more ease than most. And the management model, we're going to talk a lot about that, managing contracts by contracts, which I just said, treating each customers as if they were the only ones, if our company just had this contract to work on. This is what makes us different. I've already showed that on Simpar Day. I apologize for those that follow Simpar Day, but not everyone was there, so I'm going to repeat a few slides, but I'll try to be as brief as possible. Here we show, since the third quarter 2020, at the time of our IPO, and how much we grew in this 3 years' time. In this quarter, we completed 3 years. Edson mentioned we grew by 153% with a CAGR of 36%, I'm sorry. In red bars, you have the growth of JSL, because, sometimes we talk so much about acquisitions that it feels that we just grow by acquisitions. A reporter asked me that on Simpar Day. Does JSL need to buy companies to grow? And I said, not necessarily. Buying companies is a strategy to be faster. But if you take a look at JSL, it went from 3 billion to 4.7 billion in 7 years, 1.7 billion in 3 years. For you to have an idea, the ranking that just came out, the second company does not have a total revenue of 1.7. So JSL's growth alone in 3 years is higher than the runner-up in our ranking. And in addition to that, the way we manage acquire companies, and we are going to talk about that further on, makes their growth boost as well. And you see in blue how the acquired companies have grown. And, putting these two things together, we get to the growth we recorded. This I also showed on Simpar Day, but it's an important slide. And we show that not only in revenue. Again, it's not easy to grow in revenue, but if you focus only on revenue without bottom lines, it may, which may seem absurd, but anyway, many competitors do that, then it might be easier. But growing 153% in revenues and 200% in EBITDA and in profit, even in an adverse scenario, this is for the very, very few, I assure you. So we went from 3.2 billion to 8.3 billion. On the next slide, we are going to see we are already a company of 10 billion. But more important, together with net revenue, we went from an EBITDA of 400 million to 1.4 billion. And if we include the recently acquired companies, we are already at 1.5 billion. And the return on invested capital, and Dennis is always talking about that, with the group's view, the financial view of investors. We went from a return on invested capital of 7.3 to 15.7, more than double after the IPO. And here the 8 acquisitions, 2 in 2020, 3 in 2021. In 2022, we did not have any acquisitions. Again, we do not have a strategy of acquisitions at any price. Acquisition is a parallel strategy. In 2022, we didn't have. In 2023, we had 2. And here a bit about numbers. We are present in 8 countries, one of them outside South America, which is South Africa. And again, we are not in industries where you have robots and processes that can make standardization easier. You're talking about 30,000 people with different services, different places, different cultures. How can you have all these people look towards the same direction with the same purpose, with different services, different customers, but with the same excellence and objective?
Over 20,000 assets. 23, 8 countries. You said 8,000 countries. 8 countries only. No, that's right, that's right. We not only count on 30,000 employees, we have truckers. 2/3 of the truck fleet belong to independent truckers. We have 2.3 million trucks. 1.6 belong to independent truckers. It's great to our business. They do not compete with us. They are key in that asset-light strategy. They are our partners. Taking good care of them demands a lot of knowledge. Over 1.4 million square meters of storage capacity. Over 350 regional offices. There's something else here we haven't announced yet. We transport 250 billion worth of goods in a year. So this is significant to our economy. 8 acquisitions in that period, as I said before. Let me just make a comment about scale to give you some time to change the slides. Why is scale and growth so important to JSL? When you think about the macroeconomics, this may not be that relevant, but when you look down more closely, when you have 367 branches, 1 operation or 2 operations in one region, I have a lot more bargaining power if I have more scale. Otherwise, it would be limited. As I gain traction, I gain bargaining power. And then I can be more present throughout the country and even other countries. When you have volume in one region, that's very positive, be it anywhere in the country. I can therefore provide better service and be more competitive as far as prices are concerned. So this is good for the competition. It's not relevant at the macro level, but it is very relevant when you take a deep dive there. So having 367 branches, you add value right there on the ground, and the results will be reflected in the company's results overall. Just like purchasing fuel. When you have more volumes, you have a different price. So scale is indeed relevant. I'll try to work myself around the remote control. Those 250 billion, but there's important information here which is somewhat subtle. Freight insurance has changed. The customer could insure it, either the carrier. Only the carrier can insure the goods now, because insurance is some sort of credit. When you insure the cargo, you pay it up later on. So few companies have that credit to insure 250 billion. Again, another indirect competitive advantage. Okay, now the remote is working. Well, there's something else. And again, I'm not trying to pull any tricks. We don't have any crystal balls. This is a mathematical calculation. If you copy and paste what we've done so far and do the same in the next 3 years, organic growth CAGR in the past 3 years, and you transfer that over to the next 3 years, hey, what's going on? Go ahead. No, they were just trying to pull my leg. Okay, let me go on. If you were to copy and paste, in 3 years' time, we would be a 16 billion company, not including acquisitions. If we were to make the same acquisitions we've had in the past 3 years, we would be a 21 billion real company. The market is so fragmented, and we are big, but it's still small when we compare to the market potential. So we can say that we can move away from a 3.2 billion real company in 2020 to a 20 billion real company in 2026. There aren't that many industries that could do this. We're not saying we're doing it, we're just saying it is possible. All we have to do is keep on doing what we've done so far. So the potential for the market is huge. That's what I'm trying to show you. Let me just make a comment, especially for those of you that were not here at the same part. 8 billion, 9.6 billion here. So we move away from 8.3 billion. That has been revenues in the last 12 months, starting in Q3 in 2022. When you add AC Transportes and FSJ that were not in the past 12 months, considering their revenues in the past 12 months, we already have a 9.6 billion real company, just to clarify. Again, this is our org chart. It has to do with the people part of the organization. We are supported by the board of directors, Fernando, Dennis, and Barreto, 3 members of the group, and 2 outside or external members, Gilberto Chandot and Silvio Leão, people with a lot of experience. They actually help us, pushing us into the right direction, helping us ask the right questions. I came from a limited company. I was the owner. Many people say, "Do you have a boss today?" Well, there's the bad part of it, but the good thing is that the board will help you, guide you by asking the right questions, by proposing some challenges, and trying to go places you wouldn't go on your own. I am the CEO. I have Guilherme, the CFO, and we also have a huge team. Eduardo Pereira, commercial VP, someone who's been with the company for 20 years. Tiago, a 29-year-old. We've just promoted him to take office as a director. There's Davis, Mauro, our people manager coming from large corporations, among other people. It's a large corporation, as I said, so we need talented professionals. So on top of JSL personnel, our acquisition model is somewhat uncommon. We get that question a lot. Large corporations purchase smaller ones and absorb them, focusing on synergies. That's not our model. We want to acquire companies, good companies, companies that have potential to grow, that were already being properly managed, and we want to keep the main managers. These are the premises for the acquisition. And they remain independent. Fernando is not here. I can tell you the joke so that you don't have the wrong alchemy. We don't want to buy a good thing and transform into something bad. We don't buy know-how. We're not interested in the assets. We purchase know-how. Of course, we want the asset. But you do need to buy a company to buy asset. We're purchasing actually the know-how. It doesn't make any sense whether you're buying know-how, trying to change what's working. Get in the way. So we want to be close enough to try to help in buying inputs, just like Guilherme said, buying fuel, tires, assets, especially with that investment capacity. Then they can grow more vigorously. And then we want to keep that distance, not to get in the way. These companies have their own CEOs. TPC, Lula. This is Luis Chamadoiro. Trisha at Marvel, Ivan, Margot, Emerson in the new company, FSJ, for both Fadel and Transmoreno. I played that role. I came from Fadel and Transmoreno. It's a smaller company. We don't have an executive with that profile. That's the only exception. I play that triple role. JSL and these two companies, Fadel, the company I come from, I don't interfere as much. I just give them some pointers. I play the role of a board member. I'm not involved in the day-to-day operations. That makes a difference, actually. These companies can do well what they had already been doing and actually fulfill that potential for growth. And having that courage, quote unquote, not personal courage, I mean structural courage, as I said. I talked about it at Simpar Day. As Fadel, I wouldn't have made some decisions. It wouldn't be wise to do so on our own as Fadel. We decided to go to Africa, South Africa. Could we do that? We could. It wouldn't be wise. That would be an unnecessary risk. I would be risking Fadel. It wouldn't be wise. And I wouldn't do it on our own. Just like Marvel was growing more slowly as a limited company, just like TPC. So when you joined to JSL, the risk is minimized. Fadel has grown 2.5 times. Marvell almost tripled its size, Rodomel, and the same thing applies to other companies. The potential was there in the first place. They needed that investment capacity, not taking unnecessary risks. That's the secret behind the management model. The only comment I would like to make is that we have to be very careful when you have the foundation. There's additional information there. When you look at all the companies that make up JSL, we have 260 managers that have been on average with us for 10 years, and we keep track of that on a daily basis. Whenever we get a new project, these people will be going to be working in these projects. They'll be in charge of replicating the JSL model to other people. Our capacity to grow and to do the right thing, to implement the project and JSL culture, is to train someone who's a coordinator in one operation and make them a manager. This is an indicator, especially the average time. If we need to hire someone else externally, fine. But our challenge is to train these people. They'll ensure that we will be able to replicate our culture, our management style elsewhere. This is very important. I just wanted to make that comment. I am often asked, you left Fadel, which is a company, 5,000 employees. How can you run a business with 30,000 employees? Things don't change that much. I don't take care of 30,000. I take care of some leaders, and they take care of other leaders, and so on and so forth. The only difference when you're working at a larger corporation is that you have more layers of leaders. And why is that important? Either you're going to be, miscommunicating things when you have that many layers. Either you do that, or you have someone or people with the same purpose. Someone in the state of Maranhão up in north may not know me. He or she should have the same purpose that I have. They should be able to replicate the words that come out of my mouth, and then we're heading the right direction, the same direction. I've worked with a couple of companies in which I admired that kind of style, and other places where, it was madhouse. I can give you, I'm not going to mention any names, but the difference is the way you communicate. Let me just give you a simple example to prove what I'm saying. As soon as I joined the company, we started to announce the quarter results. Okay, you announce that you are a sales representative, right? You focus on the good numbers, right? That could be a very bad message whenever I'm giving a message to the market. JSL is better. We're having profit, EBITDA numbers, but I'm telling the team, you're not hitting the targets and hitting hard. This is crazy. I've seen that happen in other public companies. The messages do not connect. Whenever I announce results to you at quarter's end, a day later, tops, I have a call with over 500 leaders for all the companies that belong to the JSL group, using the same slide. And then I focus to the departments, break that down, those that are doing well, others that are doing not so well. There are just like a huge puzzle. Some parts of the puzzle, some pieces of the puzzle have to improve a little bit so that they can see where they are, where they stand. This is sharing purpose, sharing results. We shouldn't take any chances that whenever someone sees someone, see me, you see news in the paper, they shouldn't look at that So this Ramon is bragging as if he was the only hero. If they look at you like that, you're doing it wrong. If they look at it, well, that's nice. We're getting better. This is our spokesperson saying what we're doing. That's how they should see you as a leader. This is no small feat that can make a difference. You can have an army pushing or pulling the right direction. Not everyone fighting for their lives. Sorry for wasting time about it, but I do believe in people management. My business card should say, Ramon, I'm selling purpose. I sell ideas. I sell purposes. That's what I do 24/7. All right, moving on. This is what I've said before. JSL has been number one since 2002. When you take top 10, we accounted for 19% of the top 10. In 2022, we haven't included the latest numbers. We are at 46%. Here's what I'm trying to say. If I add up from number 2 to the 10th, that will be our size. We have to update, which is to say, what does that mean? So we're not only leaders for the past 20 years, we have increased our share. In other words, we have gained market share from these companies.
Another thing, if you take a look at this company, they do not keep in third, fourth, second place because it's not easy to keep your position in such a fragmented market. And another thing that we talk a lot, if we put together the 10 largest, we are 3-4% of the market. The number changes, but be it 3, 4, or 5, the matter of fact is that it is a very fragmented market. When you go to the US, the 10 largest company account for 30% of the market share. In the world, even considering the more developed countries, it says 20%. It makes more sense. What does not make sense is to have such fragmented markets. So we do believe the market will consolidate, especially because of the difficulties we have in terms of credit, interest rates, inputs of the last years. To give an example, inside the company, not the others, I see, before we started, someone asked me, what do you think of IC? Do you think you're going to resume results? You know why it's nice to talk about IC? It is a wonderful company, 40 years of history, a good company. A bad company wouldn't stand for 40 years. I know Ivan, its leader for many years, a company with quality services recognized by its customers. They are in customers that demand quality because of the products they have, chemicals, hazardous products, but it's a company that was hurt in results in recent years. And why? Because in the last 3 years, the market flipped. We had an increase in input prices, assets, interest rates. It was crazy. And we did not see that 25 years ago. I come from a time that was common in the 80s, in the 90s. I myself started my career, updating price spreadsheets, everything every day. The market was used to that. But since the Fernando Henrique administration, things changed. The market was no longer used to that. You would negotiate with customers once a year at the contract anniversary. We had to go there 4 or 5 times in a year. It wasn't easy. It was a lot of hard work. Sometimes there was some wear and tear with the customers because, you go there and it's hard. Sometimes, you have to be careful and not to really break relations. It's a bit of a fisherman's work. You have to pull the line, but you have to be careful, otherwise the line will break. And it wasn't easy. We needed an army of people coordinated under the same purpose. IC was not able to do that, and the results collapsed. Even to give you an example, in company of a good company that really couldn't bear. I think I'm talking too much, right? Yes, okay. I'll try and go to the point. The thing is that the slides are not helping, but anyway. Okay, perhaps I was pressing the pointer wrong. I have to admit that might be my fault. But anyway, this is a bit about what I talked about when I was talking about diversification of sectors and services. In 2020, we had already diversified services and sectors that were already present. You can see the colors. Faded colors are for 2020, brighter colors 2023. Diversification through JSL or acquired companies. But even more important than that, we have greater share in sectors in which, you have less ups and downs vis-a-vis the economy. For obvious reasons, you're talking about consumer goods, you're talking about beverages, foods, and that is normal. I mean, if the economy goes bad, there are some things you postpone, others you don't. But in addition to the diversification of sectors, we have the diversification of services that we call dedicated operations, cargo transportation, warehousing, and urban distribution. What are these dedicated operations? Dedicated operations are what we call highly specialized operations in which equipment, be it our own or of contractors, are 100% dedicated to the operation. Generally, you have for longer contracts, 3 to 5 years, and they are inside customers' production process. And why do we talk about that? Because the more connected to the production process, be it production itself or sales, the less vulnerable you are, the less commoditized you are, the more essential you are. You're talking about more essential services, and the more essential you are, that is, if you don't provide the service, the customer will break. Then the harder it is, to be exchanged by a different player. So Fadel has this very profile. You have a lot of that in JSL. And on the other hand, you have cargo transportation. Marvel, for instance, has a lot of traded work. And why is it important? Because you also enjoy market fluctuations, especially when you're talking about very specialized services like Marvel, but with a better price. Grains, warehousing, this is something that we have really been growing. This is an asset-like business, highly specialized. And here we are not talking only about people, we're talking about people and know-how. We grew a lot with TPC and with JSL itself. So see 12%. And then urban distribution, I'm going to give you a name that does not exist. It is the B2B last mile. That is, we don't get to the end consumer, but we get to the store, to the grocers in the corner, etc. So JSL and Fadel work in this line of work. So again, diverse services, diverse sectors. And Guilherme talked about that, and I have been talking about that a lot. We have been releasing our contracts in the last 2 years and our CapEx. It feels that we are growing a lot in asset heavy, and we are. But that does not mean that we are not growing in asset light. What's the difference between one and the other? regardless of the name. That already kind of tells you what it is. It doesn't mean in asset light that we do not have assets, but it means that the percentage of assets is very low. In asset heavy, the percentage of assets is very high. Which one do we prefer? They are both advantageous. In asset heavy, you're talking about long-term contracts where you have dedicated operations, guaranteed volumes. You have an entry barrier because not everyone can make this kind of investment in terms of acquisitions. So you have a natural hedging against, free competition. So these are the advantages, but you have to use the medicine to the right patient. Asset light, obviously less investment, but again, not to be commoditized. We work with the specialized services where we have the partnership of our contractors. For instance, we work with the milk run of OEMs, highly specialized services. But because this is an automotive service and prices and volumes fluctuate, it would be a problem to be completely asset heavy. So we use contractors. We have the trailers, but we have the expertise of providing the job. So it's not because you are asset heavy that you're not going to have an entry barrier. Specialization is an entry barrier. And then warehousing, also very specialized and asset light. But the name of the game here is balance, is to enjoy what is best about each of the models. And this is what I mentioned from the start. This talks about our resilience, our excellence. We have had customers. Here is the time. On the left, you have the time of contracts. Toyota, 25 years, Volkswagen, 25 years, and so on. And to your right, you have the number of contracts. And Ambev, 21 years, 17 different contracts. Suzano, active contracts, okay? Guilherme, correct me. We are not talking about contracts of 60 years ago, active contracts. Suzano, 66 years and 17 different contracts. And you have Suzano Maranhão, Aracruz, Mato Grosso, and Ambev the same. You have Ambev everywhere, different countries with different independent contracts. Our largest customer accounts for 8%, and the 10 largest, 33%, and our 50 largest, 54%. So that shows how important we are to customers, how customers are important to us, but we do not depend on a single customer or segment. Is it Thiago now? Thiago, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. I spoke too much. Just to introduce. Just to introduce the topic, when we talk about customers, we want to explain to you what we do in our day-to-day, in practice, how we build a new contract from pricing to the operation up and running. So recently, Thiago took over the forestry department of JSL. He's been with us, JSL, for 8 years. And then we talked about how we do that in all operations. And then Thiago is going to present a case to us, a recently awarded project, just to show you the level of detail for each new contract. Thanks, Ramon, Guilherme. Thanks, everyone, for the opportunity. I came to talk to you about this difference of ours, the depth and strictness that we deal with projects and customers. I'm Thiago Xará. I've been with the company for 8 years. Today, I lead the forestry department. So I've been in the segment for 8 years in the company, so we have been growing together with the business. So I'm going first to show you a video, and then I will give you a bit more granularity of that. Our slogan is to understand, to serve. This is more than a statement, it's the feeling of our business, the meaning of our business. We are going to show you in the contract by contract management. First, we try and understand the challenges of our customer. What's the scope of the project, the profile of the operation, detail by detail. And more important, what we can do different. Several areas are involved: projects, commercial, operations, technology, controls, safety, and many others. Understanding the scope, we price and translate that into a commercial proposal and contract with assumptions and rules that will stay for the remainder of the project. Once accepted, we go into deployment. The contract management manager is responsible for the entire cycle. They will implement and make the operation happen, always reporting to their executives and CEO. The executive management monitors the quality of delivery. Together with controls, they monitor results from close. With the scale, real-time management tools are very important. Contracts have to be healthy, quality to customers and profitability to JSL. To adjust course, we have to be agile and change whenever needed. So in the day, work with the customers, understanding more and more. Commercial teams and executive management develops opportunities for new projects. Thus, new cycles start in a continuous positive cycle to customers and JSL. Understanding brings quality, results, makes us see opportunities. Providing services and understand to serve is the heart of our business. This is how we do things. This is JSL. Well, this is a bit of how we work the day-to-day in operations together with the customers inside their facilities. One thing that we do a lot is really experience the day-to-day of our customers and inside the business mapping opportunities. Complementing with what the video showed, at the end of everything, after the contract is signed and we are going to implement, the front-end manager has a package of the company. That is the assets, the people, who are our greatest asset, and then they have to manage the business with those resources, and they are going to render accounts of these resources in daily meetings at the executive level and at weekly meetings at the executive level and daily meetings at the operational level. Customers depend on our performance, and we are there to make it happen. So very quickly, in practice, this is practice. If I could summarize, Thiago, what's the project like today? What is JSL's pricing model and why is it different? We brought 3 blocks to you, trying to make things simple. The first block talks about projects that are parameters such as capital costs, taxes, administrative expenses, and profit. Is JSL different in this block? Yes, because we have a capital compensation different than the market. We buy assets well together with Simpar. So that helps. But is it a game changer? Does it make the difference? No. It is good, it's important, but basically this is something that everybody talks about. Taxes, margin, payment term. Now, if you go to the second block, in our model, it is very relevant in terms of our parametric formula. It is labor, because for you to provide services, you need people. We have 30,000 employees, and this is so much regulated. You have collective negotiations, you have to work with the trade unions. So direct labor has a compensation in the region. It's really not different than the competition. Of course, we have our expertise of doing more with less, but not much. So a bit of a difference in block 1, a bit of difference in block 2. But the game changer is block 3. parameters, and operational assumptions. Here, it can make a company make or break, especially in long-term contracts. And what I'm talking about operational assumptions, how many days, the distance of transportation, what do I drive on paved roads, on dirt, that in forestry, for instance, is very important. What is the mechanical availability? What is the combined efficiency? And the speeds, because you have the speed of a loaded truck on dirt, a speed of a loaded truck on a paved road for this specific customer, for this specific demand, the times provided by the customer, how long does it take on average for me to unload, for me to load. With this entry data, we can calculate things. So what is the travel time in hours? This is very important because when you divide it by 24 hours a day, I will know how many trips I have per asset per day. This is efficiency. This is the physical utilization of the fleet to be able to use the asset as much as possible. And that will give me the kilometer and the quantity of trucks, the price per kilometer, and the number of truckers. The less employed capital for the best profitability, the better for the customer because we reduce costs, and for us because the business is feasible and sustainable. The difference is here. Traveled kilometers, this is what you see in this box. Now, I talked a lot, but I'm going to give you a practical example.
Okay, nice. But give me a practical example of what you do. Okay, the customer is bidding something. They need to transport wood from point A to point B. Okay, they have to transport wood from point A to point B. It's not working. Well, don't show the video yet, please. Okay, here's the route. Here's the first thing we do. See the scope from the customer. We're usually operating with them on a day-to-day basis. We know what their pains are, and we go there. Let's take a look at it. The director, the manager will go there. We're not going to go there to see what they have to show you. You go there to see and find out what you can do differently. We have a lot of databases. We have telemetry, a lot of information available to us. We are the largest operator in this industry by far. So we know what to do. Of course, the customer has a lot of information and they have their pain. 514-kilometer route, 17% on unpaved roads, dirt roads. So how can I be more effective to use trucks to its fullest capacity? I divide that route into 3 segments, just like air traffic control tower. When you fly into a different state, you report to a different air traffic control. So you break that down so that you can monitor these assets more closely. We came up with that study as if it were 3 trips. Then you change truckers, and then 4 drivers, 4 truckers. The truck doesn't stop at all. It was an interesting case. And they questioned productivity that we said we were going to deliver. He said, "Oh, you're being very conservative." We have worked on the asset, providing the best possible asset, just like we've done before. We've just been awarded a business, a 1.5 billion contract. We propose a different trailer, a bigger trailer, and we stood out from the competition. We shared the profits, and that's fine. We had conducted a study. We are at the efficiency phase, and he thought our efficiency was conservative. Their shooting cost, he believed in more efficiency, and he saw that from other proposals. And then we said, okay, where? Okay, segment 3, the one on dirt road, the speed is slow. I'm not selling you an illusion. I'll be able to do based on my experience. I don't know whether your customer did that. I sent a truck there. I had a trip there. Let's watch the video now. It's the route that was on the screen. I loaded the truck. These are 3 segments, 74 tons, 50 tons. That's the net load on that truck. Following the same route. Road looks nice. There are potholes here and there. They can, navigate through the potholes. What's the speed of that truck? What about 35 kilometers an hour? 40? Going once. Just navigated the potholes. They stopped to readjust the load. So an accident like that could be fatal if they do not adjust that cargo. Kept on going. What is the speed in this part of the road? The dust. And then onto a paved road. You can easily measure the speed on a paved road. Anyway, I'll show you the speed. You saw that stretch. Let's watch that stretch from the truck's cam. 16, 15 kilometers an hour. You got that right. You can work in forestry. That's it. Let me show you another stretch. There was that curve. The second video now. He was going up a ramp, climbing up. It's wet because we wetted. By doing so, it helps. So you can gain speed. We try to make your road, it's up to you. It's up to you. That maintenance is up to you. We try to speed things up. That's why it's been wetted. If it were not wet, it would slow the speed, 7 kilometers an hour. Well, simple. That's not working. He's saying that you can pull 172 in 7 hours. 24 hours. That's very bad. Is it bad? I was there. I not only went there, I sent the machine, a truck, I loaded the truck, you're relevant, I want to deliver the best service possible so that you have no shortages in your plant. Here's the result. If you think we can do better, let's work together. It's good for everyone. Let's sit down and work together. And the number he had given was 0.66. That was the shooting cost. Their team came up with that number. If I were that efficient, I could give you an 11% discount. 15% discount would account for 11% price difference. Here's the difference. That's where we make a difference. Can you give me that efficiency? Are you going to do it differently? Are you going to better maintain that road? Are you going to pave it? It's not feasible usually. In the middle of the forest, you can only go back 7 years down the road, 10 years down the road. It's not worth it to pave it. In the end, I can talk about it because I'm not going to disclose privileged information. We were awarded for that price because either they would run the risk of shortages if they purchased a promise, or they hired know-how, which was what we showed them at the right price, reflecting the real premises of the project. Either he would give me that availability, fine, I'm going to maintain the road, and then fine if you give me that guarantee, but he couldn't give me that guarantee. Anyway, it's a large project, over 500 million reals, and we were awarded that contract after all those studies, all those meetings. This is just to show you one of our practical cases, how we actually make things happen. Let me just make an additional comment. It may seem we're spending a lot of time on something very specific because they bid supply folks, implants, think they are bidding a purchase of paper or paper clips when you compare apples to apples. That's not the case. Ramon, Tiago, your price is 10% higher. You have to bring that down. So, no, wait a minute. Either you show them what's going on, and you show them where can we take 10% off the price. It's a large business. We haven't announced. It hasn't been announced, authorized by our customer. We're about to do so. We had gains of over 10%. I think it's 15 or 16%. It came out of efficiency, and then they will define whether it's worth maintaining the road, paving it or not. That's efficiency. Efficiency should do more with less. It sounds nice, but in logistics, it makes all the sense of the world. If you remove 2 hours of loading and unloading, 10% in a 24-hour day, 10% fewer trucks, 10% less price. You're not touching the profit, of course. That's it. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Tiago. All right, over to you, Ramon. Okay, very quickly. We show that during the Simpar Day. But I've talked about our acquisition model extensively. But these 3 years have shown that our rationale works. TPC, Fadel, Rodomeu, and Fadel. The blue curve indicates how much these companies would grow based on their previous CAGR before the acquisition. Companies that would grow nonetheless. TPC, Fadel. If you take that angle of that blue line, growth rate was very good. Rodomeu was more conservative, at a more acute angle, such just like Marvel. When you remove the risk by diluting these risks amongst other companies, that angle changes. This is the reality of the past 3 years. Growth was much higher. That potential was already there. We don't create potential. Potential is already there. TPC, Fadel, Rodomil, we just performed the role of a catalyst so that that angle could be steeper. On to acquisitions. Still, let me give you some update just to give you some feedback of where we're at. All the 6 acquisitions that have been in the budget for quite some time, we reported a 4.75 times from the acquisitions. When you bring that multiple later down the road, including the investments, then multiple is 3 times. That's the growth potential to generate more value, reporting in the business, in the organization. Nothing TPC at FSJ. I see in FSJ the generation value under the JSL portfolio. Or IC, if we were to make the same calculation, the operational margin, and we'll bring that up once you benefit from the JSL scale. The multiple is 5.1 times. IC is 4.1 using the margin as is. And we've talked about that after the acquisition. IC margins are under pressure. In the past 3 years, this company hasn't been able to do their homework and transfer all the inputs and the knowledges and transfer that to their prices. Margin is under pressure, as I said. When I take into account the 15% asset light, asset heavy, it's almost 2.8 times the acquisition multiple. We want a company, an excellent company, and we're going to get there. That's what we're striving for, 2.8. AFJ was a smaller multiple from the get-go. It's now 2.6 times when you include the benefit of the scale. I'm not going to focus on the reported numbers because you're all familiar with those of them. I would like to give you some more information about what's behind those numbers and what makes us feel comfortable that they remain the same. Net revenue, 50%. We were at 7 billion. EBIT was 1 billion. EBITDA, 1.3. These numbers are not including the advantageous purchase of IC. We're removing 254 million and margin from 7.4 of EBIT to 14.7. EBITDA 20.1 in the past 12 months. Profits, same margin, but an absolute growth of 184%. Returns, I'll try to give you further explanation as to what's behind those numbers. And again, return 15.7, and why we believe it is sustainable down the road. Okay, first we talk about pricing, transferring those inputs to price. We are a company that must update inputs and prices to maintain margins. We're not gaining margin per se. When we talk about margin gain, we have to look inside. You take the real benefit of the company's scale. Here are some examples. SG&A. When you bring 1 percentage point down, it may seem small in a large universe, but it's almost 50 to 60 million reals contribution in EBITDA, with an EBIT of almost 1 billion reals in the last 12 months. Warehouse productivity. Ramon and I have worked hard in that direction. We saw that opportunity to revisit our warehouse strategy. Initially, we reduced the available area by 11%, and we increased revenue by square meter by 21%. That's one of the major evolutions there. Occupancy rates of rented warehouse, our asset light is very high, so we managed to concentrate our customers by using a lot of technology. You've seen pictures and videos of conveyors, forklifts. This is something we've been doing to include technology and bring productivity up to the level we want. We've been investing heavily. There's a lot of add value there. Control tower. Here's what we did. We have 367 regional offices, 50 dedicated to cargo transportation. We've reduced that by 50%. Here's what we had to do. We concentrated the entire operation in Itaquaquecetuba. If you go down Ayrton Senna Highway, you see that intermodal center. All documents, monitoring, tracking, conversations with customers, truckers, everything is concentrated in one place, and I have way more efficiency. People are better trained, and I can reduce my number of employees. We reduced regional office by 50% and 15% of payroll. Everyone involved there. The back office for cargo transportation.
This is another area, and especially in asset light, these two actions contribute a lot to the margins that we got in asset light, because these are relevant operations. Turnover, undoubtedly a company of 30,000 employees. This is a very important indicator, measures our capacity and temperature. So this is directly related to cost. Every person I lose, I have to train all over again. So a reduction of 5 percentage points in turnover in 2 years, 21 to year to date. And this is, straight cost reduction. People that know what to do, they don't leave the company, and we don't waste money training and hiring people. In addition to contingency costs, legal costs that may be involved if an employee leaves the company. And files a lawsuit, etc. Productivity in transportation. Ramon talks about vocation of transportation. Cargo transportation is A to B. Our job is to make A to B, but round trip, or A to B, B to C, C to A. The idea is to have assets really being used as well as possible. And today we have a focus on specialized services. Our specialized services account for a much larger portfolio than disconnected A to B transportation. We were able to increase our productivity by 33%. That is the value that each asset generates to the company. That is an optimization of the fleet. And we reduced the number of assets by almost 10%. What assets I'm talking about? Trailers. So when Ramon says we use independent truckers, that means the truck belongs to truckers, the trailers become to JSL. And we reduce that by 10%. And with that, and better routes and better work, we increase productivity by 33%. Cost reduction plan. Today, we have a recurring plan. We monitor that on a weekly basis. And this plan is based on activity and comparing costs this year against last year. Unit cost of each item, or the rent we pay, the square meter that is leased, how much I'm paying this year vis-a-vis last year. Putting together all actions that we developed, and we haven't completed the job yet, it's ongoing. we already reached a benefit of 86 million in the last 12 months. So these are the kind of actions. This is almost 1 percentage point in margin. These are the type of actions that we work on the day-to-day to be sure we are going to do our job. Price is not everything. Eduardo talks about that. Price sometimes is something that the market established. We have to work on efficiency and price and costs. And the acquired companies, you have the expertise from the acquired companies. JSL brings in scale. So costs of fuels, tires, technology, people, we already expanded margins of acquired companies by 1.8 percentage points between 3Q 22 and 23, that is 12 months. So basically, we have a spreadsheet, we compare prices, how much they are paying, how much JSL can pay, we increase scale. Then what we go back to suppliers and we reduce unit amounts. At every acquisition, we can increase scale and improve prices. Now, let me talk a bit about our balance sheet and capital structure. Today, we are reporting leverage of 3.1 times without the effect of the bargain purchase. Remember, reported leverage is at 2.6, net debt 4.5. But I would like to draw your attention to this slide and the work we have been developing of looking into our debt and funding. And this is something that I talk to banks about all the time. When you take a look at JSL profile, JSL has debts to invest in assets, and assets are connected to contracts. We do not have inventory. I sign a contract, I have a list of assets to buy, I take credit if I need, acquire the assets. The assets will generate revenue in a period of generally 5 years, and then I will sell the assets at the end of the contract. So my debt is connected to that. I have 4.5 billion of debt, 4.7 of residual value, 6.2 market value. We reported that in the third quarter. So that is purchasing assets, liquid assets, trucks, trailers. JSL credit profile is long-term contracts. So having the market understand JSL credit profile together with the Treasury Department work led us to a pickup spread in 21 of 3.8 to 2 percentage points today. And the last issue of the receivable certificate, we had an average cost of CDI plus 137 for 700 million reais. We brought 2 slides for Simpar Day, but because of the short time, I would like to resume them and bring an important result on that. Here we are talking about everything that we made in terms of investments, amounts. This is cash effect, right? CapEx and payment of acquisitions, okay? We removed that from our net debt, and we went from 4.4 to 3.4 billion. The same thing for EBITDA, from 3.4 to 1.2. Thinking of all the companies I purchased and bought this year. In 9 months, I can deleverage then by 1.6. What do I mean by that? The company has the capacity to deleverage, but growth reduces my natural deleveraging. Now, when I go to the next slide, which is cash generation, and that to me, perhaps the most important piece of information of this presentation. When I think of cash generation and the movements of the net debt. So I started at 3.1 and I am at 4.4. But see, I paid CapEx, acquisitions, and financial results. I produced 1.3 billion of cash. This growth which is a lot higher than all the other items, because the scale gives me this absolute amount, I start to get to an amount that even growing, I can still deleverage because of the absolute amount. I can generate enough cash without pressuring my balance sheet because of the scale that the company has. And here, an exercise on return on invested capital. First, how we went from 7.1 to 15.7. What do we see further on? Well, we doubled our operating margin in the period, so that alone is a huge advance, but it's not only that. I'm not going to say that again. When you take a look at working capital, there are two major effects. Of course, during the pandemic, we worked very hard to have lower payment terms from our customers. Reducing time is not that difficult. It's difficult, but we can, sign in different terms. And the acquired companies didn't have the breadth of working capital. So a lower working capital because of the size of acquired companies gave us the efficiency in working capital. If you correlate net revenues and working capital, you're talking about 1.2 times. Generation of cash for invested capital in the third quarter, 1.41 times. So this is my focus, Ramon as well. We have to do more with less. Thiago talked about that, generate more revenues with less asset, with a more efficient working capital. So many actions. You reduce receivables, you have a lesser time or a higher time to pay suppliers. So a group of smaller actions that give us better profitability based on the invested capital. And here, once again, the same exercise on SimpaPay, but basically the message here. So we worked a lot to have our EBIT in almost 100 billion. That is the capacity to generate cash that will give us the sufficiency to deleverage. A curve that we believe is going down, especially in terms of interest rates. And then we see a trend of reduction in our leverage level and a better translation of cash generation and the company's net profit. Ramon, are you coming back? Okay, everyone. Sustainability. That is such an important topic today. Any company cannot, just not think about ESG. And we are not different. But we look into sustainability in a practical, real perspective. For us, sustainability are things that really make us a company that is sustainable. And we have defined 9 priority themes that we believe are topics that make sense for us to work because of their importance, because of what they add to the business. And 2 of them are environmental, that is our climate strategy and environmental management, technological and sustainable innovation. 4 in social. Remember, we work with people, more than 30,000 direct employees, 50,000 independent truckers that are around us. So health and safety, valuing truck drivers, the independent drivers, very much affected labor in Brazil. Diversity and inclusion, and impact on the community and value chain. We are inserted in several communities, cities in which we have a large operation, in regions that are very much deprived. And then governance, obviously, three items: customer relations, economic performance and expansion, ethics, and compliance. Like all the other listed companies in the group, we have an independent sustainability committee with myself, Guilherme, our people director, and two independent members, Tarsila, a professional from sustainability, quite renowned in the market, and Fernando Simões Filho, the son of Fernando Simões, that has more than 10 years experience in the company, then left the company. Yeah, I said 10 hours, but it's 10 years, okay? 10 years. But more important, he left to work in the third sector and is back to the company. And what is nice about Fernando Simões Filho is that he comes from the area of sustainability, but he has this view of an entrepreneur. So that gives us a very good balance. And talking about climate strategy, Simpar, through Movida, I think was one of the first company that achieved green bonds with subsidized rates that is connected to sustainability targets, the reduction of 15% in the emission of carbon gas by 2030. Because, Simpar is the holding, but together with the leader, we worked with that. And we are not only working with the obvious, that is, the use of alternative fuels, which we have been doing, electric or gas-driven vehicles. In cargo transportation, for instance, we believe a lot more in the use of gas, not only the GLV, which is an option for trucks, but also biomethane, which has huge potential in Brazil. Biomethane that can come from waste production. And by the way, Simpar has one of the largest waste treatment centers that convert waste into biomethane. I just attended a conference and I saw this study from the University of São Paulo that ethanol is also a generator of biomethane, and biomethane is even more ecological than electric energy and hydrogen and so many others. But regardless of alternative fuels, which were a bit more obvious, we also work with some items that people don't talk too much. Economical driving, what's that? Basically, drivers that waste less fuel. They have a better average of consumption. And that is through training, bonuses. If they spend less fuel, we are issuing less carbon gas. Efficient routes, average fleet age. And this is something that the holding invests a lot. So we have an average age of 3.3 compared to 11 years of the market in Brazil in our own fleet. Contractors have an average age of 23 years. We work with contractors that have an average age of 13 years. And that happens not only, with Euro 5, Euro 6, issues, but if I have newer trucks, they break less. So I need less trucks, and I need then to have a lower emission of carbonic gas, so of CO2, I'm sorry. And remember, in the commitment that we made at the time, we're talking about emission vis-a-vis revenues. JSL is above 15% already. Safety. This is one of the topics that are the most dear to me. Again, 30,000 plus employees. We have the obligation of giving them back to their families as they got to us. So we have been working with fatigue cameras, telemetry, verbal rotogram. What's that? Every curve every inclination, there is a voice system saying, drive at 40 kilometers per hour, 50. If it's raining, decrease your speed. So systems that give us also information about what drivers are complying with what we say. And remember, safety is not the responsibility of technicians. This is a mistake. Safety is the day-to-day. You know, we went from 500, 600 reports of safety to more than 12,000 a month. The more reports, the more chances to correct unsafe practices. And here is the result. 780% in development, and practical result, 50% reduction of lost time accidents. And this is not pretty, it's not social, it's cost. If you have 50% less accident, you know, your the pension money decreases. You have more cross-selling. Cross-selling? Yes, cross-selling, because large companies are very much concerned about safety. The meetings I had with CEOs of large multinational companies are never commercial. They are connected to safety. 54% of reduction of accidents without lost time. This is to work safety. And even in social, we have a very nice channel belonging to the holding that is called Connected to You. This is a channel you have psychologists that address several problems, from family services. I don't know, was someone that was involved in an accident. It was a fatality. It can happen in the business, but there are other things. The husband that is alcoholic or has problems at work, it's some kind of indebtedness. No matter what problem, we have social workers and psychologists, 2,300 visits. So that's quality of services. So we are focused on ESG, but that has to do with our own sustainability. And then it's not only talking, you have to be recognized by your customer. And here we have several awards. We were awarded the best supplier of General Motors, disputing with international suppliers. Only 4 suppliers had this award in GM Global, only 1 in logistics, JSL. Vale gave us an award for more than 1,000 days without accident. Whirlpool, Heineken, Volkswagen, and so many others. And that talking about customers. But again, I cannot move the slides. There's something wrong about this.
Well, turnover will go through the roof tomorrow. Anyway, we've been awarded by our own employees. We've been acknowledged by the Great Place to Work Award for the 5th year, FADEL in Paraguay. It's great to have that award for those who speak Portuguese, let alone those that speak Spanish. One of the top 100, FADEL joined that ranking last year. Again, we don't work to be acknowledged like that, but once we get that acknowledgement, it's an indication that we are heading the right direction. All right. We've been talking about the market left and right, but let me show you exactly what we've been talking about. Our GDP is about 10 trillion reals. Out of that total, about 12 to 13% is logistics. 1.3 trillion spent on logistics every year in our country. Dedicated operation, commodities, internal logistics, freights, urban distribution. Again, 1.3 trillion. Is it all up to us? But take 10 billion and divide that by 1.3 trillion. It's 0.7%. It's such a huge market. Think about an Olympic swimming pool, but when you compare that to the ocean, it's nothing. When we look at ourselves, we look at ourselves as an Olympic pool. When you take that and compare that to the ocean, it's almost an infinite volume of water. We still have a long way to go. It's a huge potential that we've been saying that Brazil has that highway inclination. We no longer talk about that. Transportation companies would lobby for highway transportation. No, we have nothing in the country. Just for comparison purposes, we have 200,000 kilometers of paved roads. France, which is a small fraction, Brazil has 800,000. I said that to someone in New York and said, why do you resort to highways? Wouldn't it make sense to resort to railway? Yes, it does, but all we need is the railway, right? Highway or road transportation is the only one that can reach places, just like Tiago showed you. When you take the average of grain exports have 8.5%, railways grow 6.3%. There's so many private railways still. Given the infrastructure problems we have, the more we grow, or the little that we grow, they have to resort to road transportation. We do not advocate road transportation only. We are a logistics operator. We have intermodal operations in forestry operations managing their highway, railway terminals. We manage highway and port transportation to move pulp and even railway to ports. We are 100% in favor of these other means. We've been awarded the concession of 2 ports. We're in favor of logistics. It would be great if the country had more modes of transportation to bring the logistics costs down. But Brazil is what it is, and we want to take the best opportunities that there are out there. I just wanted to say, after the purchase of IC, they have a lot of grains in their portfolio. By acquiring IC and seeing that gap for volume growth and not increasing the railways, we still believe there's a greater opportunity to have highways or the road transportation in the agribusiness to transport grains. So the opportunities is still there. That's what I wanted to say about the IC acquisition. Well, I mentioned 1.3 trillion. If you were to take neighboring countries where we already operate, we had yet another 1.3 trillion. So the potential is 2.6 trillion reals. Again, making that comparison between the pool and the ocean. Before we turn over to Eduardo, these are huge numbers. And you always have the impression, okay, where do we start? How can you make that happen? We're often asked how you do that at the micro level. Eduardo will be joining us. You've been with the company for almost 20 years, right, Eduardo? You've been in the company as many years as Thiago has of age, right? You've been in operations, so you know our customers' pains. He's led the renegotiation process, and he has that feeling. Why do we make more money? Why do we lose money? He knows what he's talking about. You've already said I've been with the company for over 20 years. I was a teen. I'm Eduardo Pereira. I'm in charge of the company's commercial area. I joined the company in 2004. I started working in rentals. I came from Unidas and then I worked for Vamos, Movida. In 2012, I joined the logistics department and I've been there ever since. Okay, Guilherme said there's so many things we can do, right? You can move on. Another one. There it is. What are customers looking for? Go ahead, fine. In services, you have to improvise day in, day out. So here's what customers want. Those that hire us are looking for trust. When customers outsource it, they want the delivery. They want the comfort that they will get the service they hired. Speed, flexibility, scale, and financial capacity. What does agility mean in logistics? Simplicity, being serious. You cannot complicate things. Flexibility is great for services. JSL can quickly adapt to the customer's needs, and when it happens, we're second to none in understanding our customer needs. Scale is not only assets, it's the capacity to understand. At the end of the quarter or at the end of the month, you had a backlog and you may have 60, 70, even 100% more services in that difficult or critical phase for a customer. Financial capacity will allow you to run joint projects that will make your presence in your customers' facilities even stronger. Productivity is key. You cannot get right off the bat. You start the way they wanted you to start, and then quickly, 2 to 3 months down the road, you may change a route. You can provide bigger or better sized pieces of equipment. Innovation. I think Leandro will be talking about that innovation. These are managerial tools, control tools that will simplify the logistics issue for these customers, mitigating legal risks. It's a very atomized market. You have companies of every size, labor liabilities, tax liabilities, in front of a judge. The problem is up to the one that hired it. They'll have to pay that bill. So they are looking for that possibility to mitigate legal risks. And why do we grow? The natural growth of the economy. If the economy does better, customers manufactures more, I transport more, I grow more. As simple as that. When they have a hard time increasing their competitiveness. So if your customer has that pain and you make that pain go away, you left or you leave that mark that you helped him out we do a great job. We're always willing to help our customers there. And then there's that opportunity, and out of that pain, you can come up with a long-lasting relationship, and you become a true partner. The lack of logistics operators with a complete and specialized service portfolio. We work every day as if it were our first. Today we can provide an end-to-end service. End-to-end, just like Ramon said. I can take their raw material, transport to the plant. I can get their raw material. I receive that at the plant. I can move it, store it in their plant, and bring that to production lines. After that, finished product, I can transfer that and ship it to our own warehouses or their own warehouses, a DC, and then with that DC, I deliver it to their customer. Those trucks are with the urban distribution. It's not the last mile per se, very close to the end user. And I can do the reverse logistics. I can bring back pallets, packaging. So it's a playground of business opportunities, so to speak. Consistently, we can provide many different types of services. Once again, this has to do with the relationship we have, loyalty, that devotion to serve. Our revenues in Q3 2023. These are the top 5, top 10, the top 20. 614 million, 830 million, and 1.2 billion for the top 20. Growth for these customers alone, 82%, top 5, 72 if you were to take the top 10, 69% for the top 20. Their share, 13%, top 5, 8, 5. We have a division for new businesses looking for opportunities from customers where we're not present or we have a small participation there. And there's a division that takes care of existing customer. We mapped out opportunities. Everything we do for one given customer, what do I do? What's my share there? What I could do for them? When you take the spend of the top 5, 10, or 20, look at this, 4.7 billion, top 5, 10.4 billion, and 23.2 billion, the top 20. Take a look at how many opportunities we have in logistics. We're not talking about segmentation, service portfolio, flexibility. We're talking about market opportunities that are out there. If I were to take 30% of that, revenue would be 1.4 billion for the top 5, 3.1 billion, top 10, 6.9 billion in the top 10, 20. And we're talking about top 20. We're not talking about other customers that still have a huge growth potential. Did I say month? It's by quarter. It's on a quarterly basis. So that table shows us that you have that growth projections focused on services. So when you grow your share in your own customer, you increase loyalty. It's easier to get awarded new businesses. They know you. It's cheaper. You spend a lot less time. It's a lot easier. You establish a much closer relationship with them. And you become key to them. It becomes a strategic alliance, and you can cross-sell way more. That's where we stand. For the 9 months of the year, at the bottom here, new contracts, right? 2.5 billion in new contracts signed in the last 9 months, or the first 9 months of 2023. 93% of those were in existing customers. You have that virtuous cycle. Of course, we're always looking for new businesses, new customers, but we take good care of our own existing customers. Proof of that, you've seen how long we've been working with them and how much we've been offering them. That's it. Thank you. Let me give you some feedback on yet another growth avenue. The potential is huge. We're talking about 5.8 billion of additional revenue in 20 customers by quarter if we were to reach the 30% of their share. The model that Thiago showed you, I'm in that customer looking for other opportunities with the commercial department. That's what we do so that we can capture that additional volume. We've grown 80% in the past 3 years with this portfolio of customers. The model works. Quality in the delivery is key so that you can be awarded new businesses. But there's something else, another much awaited avenue for growth, to get efficiency and scale for transportation. When we acquired Truckpad, we had two major avenues for growth. Number one, to be an independent business. There's the carrier as a customer, a different profile than that of JSL. But there was a very important issue, which was to digitalize contracting rates and combine enough data so that you could actually optimize our routes.
So we've done that in the last 8 months, working in Truckpad's product. We should launch that by the end of December. This is our target. And what we call the integrated platform, that is shipper, transporter, truckers, 100% digital. So the shipper wants to ship a load, they post it on their portal. I read it automatically. I see what truckers are available. I hire them. I manage the transportation until I have proof of delivery. The tool is already being tested, and we should launch it by the end of the year. That's the plan. We're thinking about how to explain that. So people in Truckpad made a video. It's a 1 minute, 1 minute and a half. Just for you to understand. Cargo road transportation is vital for the economy, moving everything that is consumed, transported in the country. But things change. Demands are different. The world is different. Now we are demanded more. Efficiency in the sector is one of the main drivers of competitiveness of companies and countries. Thus, Truckpad, a technology and innovation company for cargo transportation, present in 10 years, connected to the large ecosystem of transportation in the country, JSL. More operational efficiency of shippers, logistics operators, and truckers. More safety, reliability, and sustainability for the sector. In 2023 alone, the 1,700 transportation companies hired 200,000 with 35 billion reais in products. With know-how and technology, Truckpad launches its integrated logistic protocol, connecting shippers, logistics operators, and truckers for efficient, sustainable trips. Truckpad moves on, connecting truckers to freights in a single place with all tools that people need to have 100% digital transportation. truckers will have access to JSL freights, as well as other transportation companies that are on TruckPad platform. It is an ecosystem that is always growing. More loads, more productivity, all digital, with controls and information in real time. A revolution in transportation for shippers, transportation companies, and logistic operators. We developed each feature with those that the most understands of transportation in Brazil. On the portal, you can see freights, allocate truckers, manage risks, documentation of freight and payments, and also access the control tower for intelligent tracking and proof of delivery. All that in real time with TruckPad apps, more efficiency in transportation, accelerating freight contracting, more communication and visibility, less operational costs, accelerating the hiring, loading, delivery, less paperwork, less calls, better SLA in the service of customers through a managed system, more productivity to truckers, reducing trips without loads, less carbon footprints, and a good travel checklist digital process. The TruckPad platform is operational efficiency, safety, sustainability, integrating solutions, teams, and drivers. And this is just the beginning. We are the transformation of the cargo transportation system in Brazil. Welcome to the future of logistics, TruckPad. Well, that's it. Edson, it's up to you now for us to continue. We'll come back for the final remarks. Thank you. Okay, a hand of applause. Thanks for the presentations. Thank you, Guilherme. Okay, without any further ado, thanks, Eduardo, Ramon, Guilherme. Now I'm calling the chairman of the board of directors of JSL, Fernando Simões. A hand. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be here with you. Hello. It's good to be here with you. I'm going just, to talk a bit because those who don't know where they come from do not know where they're going to. So I would like to share some thoughts as a shareholder and a board member, what we are doing and what we as board believe we can do without guidance, without expectations, but really it is a chat. Then we have the Q&A. It is the people that make the company happen that are going to be here, more than 30,000 employees out in the field, but I'm going to be here as well if I can help with any of your questions. My father started the business as a trucker. I started working in 81, then I took over the commercial department. You know the story. But in the 80s, we started to diversify services in JSL. We had 75% of revenue in 3 customers, almost just one, which was Sidebras. And in commercial, I almost had a stomachache when I left the customer because I depended so much on them and I was so young. My father had gone through challenges and he said, I don't need to grow. I'm good as I am. But without many plans, we went through the 90s building a new business without much planning, but I didn't want to depend on a single customer, on a single sector. I wanted many customers, many sectors. But for that, we had to do the math. We were on the 23rd, 25 most important companies, but it was transportation. We started then to rent cars with dedicated operations. They were not called dedicated operations. There was in the forest business, the dollar Brazilian real exchange rate was 1 to 1. Companies did the math. So we were the only companies in the 90s that diversified and created a portfolio without much planning, I have to admit. But we wanted long-term contracts. We wanted to be important for our customers. And then after some time, I learned what I wanted. I wanted an entry barrier for customers not to change suppliers all the time. I don't have anything against people that wanted to do that, but that's how we developed. And because we wanted to know if each business was being profitable, we created managers by business and controls by business. If you developed 3, 4 businesses at a customer, we had a spreadsheet that we have today. If it is forklift, if it's transportation, if it's rental. In the end of the 90s, in short, we started to bring some people from the industry to the company to take over people, projects, and we started to be a bit more organized. So we had rental, we had transportation, then the customers would outsource transportation, but not road maintenance, because they said, you're going to do transportation, I don't have to keep the road. But then, because of foreign machinery, you stop 50 trucks. So we started to have proposals of dedicated services. Okay, I'm going to provide you the service. The more scale I have, the better discount you have. And then I said, okay, passenger transportation, that is human resources, people, rental. So we started to have managers per business, and then one person that was responsible for the relationship with customers, but several managers for us to have a more direct contact. We grew by more than 25% a year like this. We went public in 2010. We have 2 acquisitions, one in 2007 and 2008. We didn't take good care of them. At the time, I was CEO of JSL. We made a mistake. We wanted to put together administrative things. We learned fast. In 28, after JSL went public, we acquired the skill. We got it better, but we still made mistakes, but we continued to develop. And then Movida came along, and Vamos and others. All that said, JSL had the largest portfolio of logistics services, you know that, but did not lose its essence, and that I still believe in as a board member and shareholder, to have businesses in separate. We are not an industry. We are not a large company. At the front end, customers need specific services, specific interactions. You have a customer that has 5 plants in Brazil. It seems that you are operating different countries because of geography, because of the unions, because of the tax system. JSL, quite modestly, I think, was the only company in Brazil, and I hope we have many more, that developed a business management model that in the front end, you have a business owner. They understand the lives of customers, of the regions where they are inserted. And then, they are almost intertwined with customers. And with that, we developed. And when you make mistakes, and we all make mistakes at pricing, it's hard. But, we can know whether we made our mistake. Was it the parameter that was a mistake? And then it's easier for the customer to understand and for you to pass on to your costs. And then we developed with customers in 2020, when we developed Simpar and etc. We thought of succession because we had the right managers in each business. And in the case of JSL, we decided to enjoy our plans that we have had for a long time, which was to have a purely logistic company so that those that follow us and customers could understand our portfolio clearly, because it was a bit of mixed with the holding role. And I heard that from you. And also a company that could have a movement of consolidation and really transform into a logistic company with a scale business model and potential to growth that was second to none. And then we had the happiness of bringing Ramon from Fadel, becoming the CEO of the company. Our people, we talked about that, and our positioning. that really coincide with the market transformation, a huge increase of costs in logistics, very high financial costs, a ramp up, as you know, in a market. We are very proud of logistics, but many people say they are in logistics, but they are transportation companies. Nothing against it, but it's true. And Brazil is not the size of the United States. If you are specialized as a transportation company, you have a limit of growth. When you have a portfolio of services, you don't have a limit because you can go into intralogistics, asset-light operations, asset-heavy operations. So several options to develop together with the customers. And on the other side, if you don't do the math, you cannot react fast to pass on costs to customers. And that happened in the last 3 years. You see companies that had 200 trucks 6 years before, they went to 400 or 500 trucks, but they grew at a high leverage. Then there is a huge increase of costs, and they became dependent on customers, sometimes customers that encouraged their growth and didn't have the heart to pass on prices. And this combination just makes them spiral down. Things start to lose control, and sometimes they don't realize that they are being exchanged because customers are not going to fight them. They are going to discontinue operations, little by little, and people realize that. And people understand that they want to have the potential to grow. And with that, some companies just start collapsing, and others that are prepared to grow, they start to grow. And then, for customers, sometimes in this process, they get a lot of liabilities because, if you're a logistics operation, you have to pay labor, tire costs, fuels. The banks, you can negotiate, but taxes, the government is being more efficient to buy, and that generally is something that is going to go to the lap of customers. So customers understand more and more that a company that gives them reliability, companies that comply with their obligations are safer, and that really strengthens our system as JSL. What you saw happened in recent years, we have a lot to improve, and we work to improve every day. We have an obligation of doing today better than yesterday and worse than tomorrow. But our management model, separating companies and businesses, very much consolidated. You probably saw how some of our areas operate. We have an operation director. You have regions that that are under their responsibility, but you have local managers. And I think that's the secret. You grow, but you keep the simplicity of business. And our simplicity is price contract by contract, to offer the right price to customers, but more than that, monitor business by business from close. It's not, if I have a customer with 5 businesses, 4 are good, 1 is bad. We have to address the bad one. And why? Because we have very tight margins. And when you have a bad business, when you have a very good one that offsets the other, the customer can have a bid tomorrow and keep you with a bad business and, get another supplier to a good business. And then if it happens fast, you can go red. So monitoring contract by contract is our major difference. And, I'm no longer an executive. I say that we have trained people. This is our greatest asset in logistics. We have people from the industry, trained people from the inside, people learned from the business. You said that, right? Thiago has been here since 2014, 15. He has worked with experienced people, and we have been bringing people that are better than us, people who bring innovation that make the difference, respecting our values and cultures. We are not going to sell customers what they don't want, but we are not going to sell prices only. We are going to sell services and quality. And this is our DNA of our business. This is in the board of directors, but it is inside the operations. And that's why we can develop in a sustainable manner. In acquisitions, we are talking about hundreds of acquisitions, of potential acquisitions. We are not buyers of companies. What we want is to optimize our business, contributing to the transformation of our company. It's not just merging businesses. It's not, firing everyone. We are buyers, you're going to be bought, and you're going to wear my uniform, and that's it. Call the toll-free number, and that's it. That does not work. This is not our way of operating, because people in logistics, you don't have an administrative process that encompasses it all. You have one person that calls that customer. If you lose that person, you lose it all. If you transfer people from city to city, you lose it all. So we have made very surgical acquisitions. On the day after, we say, we are like a lifeboat. What do you need? But you are going to keep working business as usual. And with that, we gain scale, but not, saving costs in SG&A, because that we gain by, the volume of companies acquired and not by trying them out. Shareholders sometimes prefer to work with us because they know that from now on, they are going to work with us, they are going to be respected, and they are going to be demanded deliveries. So our business model is unique, not because we just, have a rocket science model, but because we respect people. We want to have simplicity, not because it's beautiful, but because customers want it fast, and we cannot live without our people. People at the front end have to have the attitude of the owner. They have to solve problems because, logistics companies, people are used to talking to owners. So our managers have to be owners. But in addition to that, you have a plan for 24, then you go to the board, comes back and forth. Then you say, you're going to renew the fleet, but we have X contracts. Now, when you buy the fleet to renew or the equipment to renew, quite often in expansion, you have a new business and customers need the operation. And you can postpone renewal for 6 months, and you're going to have assets other companies don't have.
You have a cost today that others don't have. Your network is prepared for certain operations. And then you can always resort to other alternatives. And you have that track record of deliveries that are second to none. So this is an industry with financial resilience. The auto industry has never been shut down. Mining operations, pulp and paper, food plants, beverages, those are the industries where we operate. And our operations are key to them. So we get out of bed every day trying to do things better, day in, day out. The more track record you have with your customers, the more business you can generate. And you have more loyal customers. Aren't they concerned about consolidating? We still have a smaller portion in many industries where we operate. Number two, they're not concerned about it because we deliver. We've never had any problem of that sort. And they know we need results that are compatible to our business. In 2000-something, we left the customers that accounted for 20% of our revenue. but we never let him down. And then we came back some time later. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you. We have a puzzle, mosaic. Everyone will be contributing to that total puzzle. They have their own contributions as if they were smaller companies spread throughout the country and other countries. That's what makes up our company. The way we see the future, we're very fortunate as a board member, as a shareholder. However, we still believe that there are many opportunities for organic consolidation. When you see a company growing by 25%, 30%, the market didn't grow as fast. So you're growing organically. And you only see that year before we annualize that growth rate. We believe that organic growth will continue. It's feasible. When we talk about M&As, you've seen that 2.5% market share. We are at a very early stage. Governments must collect taxes. People have to pay more taxes, and the governments will be more efficient in collecting. So that gives us more opportunities. And companies will have to respect that because everyone is looking for better ESG numbers, and those that hire us know that we focus on sustainable development and respecting society across the board. That combination is what I believe will happen. I'm not creating any expectations here. The same organic growth and the same M&A in the next 3 to 4 years. Some of you were part of the IPO, and we said we're going to be growing 25%, 28% a year, half organically, half through acquisitions. By 2025, we'll have a 10 billion revenues. Due to their hard work and several others out of the few that happened in 2023, we're almost getting to 10 billion. This is what we said we would be able to pull off in 2025. It's happening now in 2023. As a shareholder and a board member, I truly believe in the potential of that continuous growth. The market will consolidate through organic growth or M&As. Simple, supplementary solutions that can contribute to JSL's scale. And at the same time, JSL will be contributing to the growth of the companies that will be acquired, companies that do have that potential growth. Not losing sight of our culture, training people that are better than us, trying to focus on customer needs without losing the control of every business we run, trying to improve whatever needs improvement through operational excellence. That's what I've been doing as a board member. That's what Ramon and other managers do day in, day out. Thank you so much. I'll be available during the Q&A session. I can answer questions about the board and as a shareholder. I do believe in the business as a shareholder, the way JSL is positioned. And the last entry barrier is our people and the management model. And what we truly believe, we have to improve efficiency, operational excellence, but separate things and focusing on different businesses and improve on a daily basis. This is what makes us stand out. Thank you. Thank you, Fernando. All right. We can now start with our Q&A. A lot of information was provided to you. I believe you may have some questions. Ramon will be back. I'm just kidding. So Ramon, Eduardo, Guilherme, Thiago, and Fernando will be joining us on stage for the Q&A. let me explain how it's going to work. We're doing it live. Just raise your hand. A microphone will be given to you. Just state your name and the company you work for. If you are from other parts of the city or the country, rather, you can submit your questions online. Press the button question at the bottom of your screen, and then questions will be asked here on stage. Before we set up the stage, or while we prepare the stage, so we have microphones available to all of you. Ramon, the screen is ready for you. It's working fine. Take this one. Check, check. You wanted to say something? I think we should replay that. I think we have other microphones available. So again, raise your hand. 2 questions here. So good evening. Can you hear me? I'm André Ferrer from Bradesco BBI. Let me go back to that exercise that you could reach 1 billion in 2026. 21 billion. 5 billion from M&A that you could, or supposing you could replicate that are well chosen targets, especially those in 2021. These targets have good multiples. Thirdly, very strong contribution as far as revenue is concerned, especially in the case of IC. How replicable would that be? Looking at the current pipeline you have today. What's your take on these 3 elements? Quality of the companies, the multiples of these companies. Are companies that are big enough that can change that needle, which just like in the case of IC. We discuss M&As at Simpar. We listen to the team, of course, and we talk about our goals. We have just finalized the budget for next year. Organic growth is very strong and focused. So our companies remain focused on the deliverables, the goals, the objectives, so that we can deliver what was promised. And we try to be very selective when we consider mergers and acquisitions. When I said we sell opportunities, take IC, for example, very supplementary operation, dedicated operations, and a very strong presence in agribusiness. The multiple is good, but it's good for everyone. It should be good for us and for those that are selling. It doesn't make any sense if the person who's selling a business regrets that sell. So you have to be concerned about safety because it operates gases, liquids, chemicals. So they have a great managerial model, but they had the need to recover prices so that they could practice fair prices. So that was an opportunity to us. The shareholders saw it too as a good opportunity. So when you readjust prices, if you don't have that scale, you may become hostage of one operation if you are over dependent. So when you have the entire JSL, you can have a professional negotiation and achieving that fair price. Low multiples will come 2 to 3 years down the road. There's that multiple, but when you have that potential for growth, you can transform. USJ will become a different company in 2 years. Sometimes it's a smaller business, but it's very supplementary in nature. Looking down the road, we should continue M&As in the same strategy, selective with potential for growth that are supplementary to this JSL business so that we can offer a wider portfolio to customers. And that case in which JSL scale can contribute to better margins for that acquired company. That's possible. When you take the 3 years after the IPO, there's nothing ahead of us because the market is fragmented. We can't continue to operate the same way. The Brazil needs logistics and companies needs that security. I cannot do what they do. So being supplementary in nature is our number one asset. There are many companies that did not make that transformation, did not train people, did not come up with the appropriate model. That's very tiring. There's some that can transfer prices to customers, but again, the consolidation through organic growth and M&A remains the same strategy. And there are multiples that are attracted to us and to those that negotiate with us. And our track record, the commitment and respect with people, not only with the seller, but those that remain there in the company. So that gives us the chance to be heard. People like what they do, and they don't want to see what they do being devalued. So that's what makes us stand out, the way I see it. Someone over there with the mic? Congratulations. Congratulations, Ramon, Fernando. I'm Igor Araujo from Genial Investments. My question is about what Guilherme said about profitability. Let me bring that to the IC universe. What's your take? What kind of value can extract there? Reducing accounts receivable, better payment terms? Where do you believe you're going to extract that operation profitability? And along the same lines, the slide you showed us, the evolution of industry in recent years, the targets of acquisitions are not amongst the top companies. What makes you look for those targets that are not amongst the top companies? Is it because they have the similar quality standard? Or is it outside the scope, maybe to concentrate your business? These are my two questions. We want to buy a company in one way and leave it differently. When you look at there, it's not there. I'll give you an in-house example. Ramon managed Fadel, developed people, focusing in one industry, and it did that very well when we did business. Your revenue was 500 million, almost $1 billion today, right? It's an in-house example. If I were not part of a Simpar, a holding company, wouldn't be able to build what we have been building. That's the joint expertise. Ramon would do that on his own. But between doing it on his own, well, the code outside is worse when you're on your own. When you're together, you can face those challenges more easily. I see. What's scale? Tires, trucks, fuel, parts, people, systems, infrastructure. When you purchase scale, take a cell phone, for example. You have a list of things. You don't change the structure, but who pays for less? And you bring that to the ecosystem. So when you find something cheaper out there, the synergies that you bring in-house are fantastic. And there are customers that are not wanting to consolidate one company. What if there's a problem in the future? When I joined JSL, they feel more safe. They feel safer. They know that the commercial negotiation is fairer, but they have that security of a large company. I'm sorry for taking too long. Let me just comment about the case of IC. Gains from consumables are clear. You have two worlds in IC, right? Half of it is the traded market in agribusiness, and the other half from contracts, very similar to what Thiago described. In the contracts world, we've been helping IC just like we did with JSL 2 years ago, renegotiating contract, showing customers input price increases. Since we're relevant and we provide good service, negotiations are moving on. It's not easy. It wasn't easy for JSL, but we believe we'll move along the way. So you bring contracts to the right terms. That's one thing. The traded world, this is something we do with partners, with franchisees. We are revising the entire basis, or there was some managerial problems, and margins are coming back. So we do believe that we can bring their margins back up. That's how we budgeted, because we truly believe in that. Let me just make an additional comment. The mental model is the same. You have to have that mindset to bring costs down, to have more efficiency that can be applied over there too. And there is where profitability comes from. For IC, every contract, just like Thiago said, Fernando mentioned it too, it's a package, a predefined asset basket. You can't change that. It's been contracted out. But for IC, you'd have using freight or fleets, use an additional volume that wasn't initially contracted out. We could have that profile to have our own fleet and then bring outsourced fleet. Maybe use the invested capital and the return. A little bit will come from price, a lot from synergies, and a little bit of the invested capital structure. Because those that are not in the contract. In IC, we want to do the same thing we did in JSL. It didn't happen overnight. We conducted that cascade approach. Some operations was easier, a little bit more of the same, that just like we did.
Hi, this is Lucas Esteves from Santander. I think Fernando talked a lot about the difficulties that smaller competitors have, and that gives you an opportunity for acquisitions, like to access credit, to pass on prices. But you said something, Ramon, and I remember we talked about that, which is this change that you had in freight insurance. How do you see that as an opportunity for future growth? Because I understand the smaller transportation companies are not going to be able to have insurance of their own, so they will probably have to negotiate with you, or they're going to lose competitiveness and give open room for an acquisition. Can you comment on that? This is a good question. These things are cyclic because freight insurance was the responsibility of transportation companies. What happened in the market is that responsibility was absorbed by shippers. And obviously, shippers understand they negotiate with insurance companies better than several transportation companies negotiating with the insurer, which makes sense. But that's also enabled a long time for shippers to hire smaller companies. And you were right there, because they had guarantee of insurance. I'm okay. I'm negotiating with that shipper. With the change that happened, and it is a huge structural change, that might be an indirect advantage. The market is still absorbing that. And why? Because for contracts in effect. They are 12 months contract, and they are to be assessed until they reach their maturity. That happened in August, more or less. So we are in the middle of the cycle. So we are going to have more clarity in the future. But you're right. There are two things that help us in competitiveness. One thing is that, kind of credit when I have an insurance policy, and smaller players are going to have difficulties, and shippers are going to give a second thought in who to hire. So it is certainly an opportunity for the future. Guilherme, do you have any online questions? We have two, but if you want to take the questions and then we close with the online. Okay. So I'm going to take one. This is Marcelo Arada from BTG. I have two different questions. The first is diversification. You increased your exposure in agribusiness with IC. You showed the growth in exports. I would like to know if you have any preference for any type of industry or sector that you want to be more exposed to from now on. And second, as going international. You showed the addressable market in the countries in which you already operate. I'd like to understand the relevance of these countries for the future. If you have a possibility of increasing business in same countries or even going to a completely different country with existing customers or new customers. Thanks for your question. We are always interested in growing in a sustainable manner and with profitability, but we are not obsessed about anything. What do I mean by that? We are not obsessed with a specific sector or with going international. No, they are both strategies. So what are the sectors that are interesting to us? The ones that are more resilient to economic instability. Agribusiness is one of them. All the other consumer goods, food, beverages, etc. So these segments are the most appealing to us. Now, there are several sectors in which we are still not present that are interesting, that have the same characteristics. And that can be through organic growth, and we are seeking that. Eduardo said that now we have a new management for new businesses, looking at sectors in which we are not present that have these characteristics, or through acquisitions. Going international, it follows the same strategy. We are interested in being less dependent on the domestic economy, and we have been doing that. But we are not going to adventure ourselves. You are not going to say that JSL opened a company in Europe waiting for new contracts. We are not going to do that. Our business is go international with customers, contracts, with potential growth. We did that in South Africa. It was not an adventure. We had a contract that was not huge, but grew a long time. And we see possibilities of growing in other African countries. And it's important that this customer has potential in other countries, United States, Europe, wherever it's present. So we are showing our capacity to adapt even to more complex cultures, as it is in South Africa. On the other hand, in our neighboring countries, we have grown a lot in Argentina. We almost doubled size in the transportation of parts for automotive production in Argentina. We grew in Chile with Marvel, and that will continue to happen. So we are interested, but always following this strategy, resilient markets with good productivity. Any more questions from the floor? Good evening, everyone. This is Daniel speaking. Just as a follow-on on the insurance questions, do you see risks or opportunities about payroll payment or changes in the truck law? Tiago showed in the second table. This is something that applies to everyone. But if you could give a bit more color on your contract structure, if you have automatic pass-throughs. And the second question, perhaps more to Fernando or Guilherme. I understand clearly the synergy to acquired companies with independent management. My question is, if you have mapped synergies with companies extra JSL, like I see, let me show to the agribusiness share with Porto de Aratu Port or BBC Bank. So if you could talk about the synergies with related parties. I'm going to answer the first question, and Fernando will answer the second. The only certainty you have in Brazil that you are going to have risks. The only certainty we have is that things are going to change. I don't know if for the better or for the worse. You're right. We had the veto of President Lula on the payroll tax reform. We have, some laws passed, but this is what's been like for the last 40 years since I joined the industry. But again, following the same analogy, that I talk about all the time. If you are in a car race, when it rains to everyone. So you do better if you can drive under the rain better. Talking about the payroll, I don't know what is going to happen, but our contracts always say that whenever there is a tax change, there is going to be an impact on prices. They can be good or bad impact. Remember, when the tax on payroll went down, customers enjoyed the benefit of that. When you have a tax benefit, customers always enjoy the benefit. If there is an increase of taxes, that will have a negative impact. It's not easy to negotiate or automatic, but it is in our contracts. I think it's very likely that our competitors have the same clauses. So I think we are going to be less affected than the competition. Therefore, we have another advantage there. So that's the point. We are prepared for changes, even when we don't think they are going to happen. The truckers' law, what it made is that long distance trips are less productive. In the past, they could have a lesser inter-journey and they would offset the hours, and it made more sense. But we had an inter-journey of 11 hours, just like ours, because you have the commuting work. It's not that you're going to rest for 11 hours. And it doesn't make sense that two drivers on the road, so they would keep this time to rest at home. That's not what happened. The law was changed, unfortunately. With that, we have more unproductive trips. And Tiago mentioned that in forestry, we have 4 drivers for us to lose less productivity. How will the competitors do? Either they are not going to be compliant with the law, and therefore they are going to have a labor liability, or they are going to need more trucks for the same volume. So in terms of competition, this is another advantage. It's not that I want that, but I have to be better than the competitors. It is the old joke, I don't need to run faster than the lion. I have to run faster the person who is next to me. Thank you. Fernando, would you like to comment on the second question? Business are completely independent. Each company is on its own. BBC is going to finance cars, but it's part of a trade desk. BBC is just part of a group, and there is a robot that is going to seek the best interest rates. And that's how it works. It's very hard that BBC is going to be as competitive as a retail bank for the payroll of our companies. So we always want the best for each company. Now, we have our DNA of services. When you go to Aratu Port, we don't think it's just a part. And now I'm talking as Simpar. We see opportunities for services of added value. For instance, you have a shipyard. You can have silos. You can package grains, and then the trader ships the product directly to their customers. Logistics services that are part of the port. We can be competitive or not, but complementary services can happen. But each company has its own CEO, CFO, and they compete, against one another. We want the best for each area, and this is healthy competition within our ecosystem. This is how we preserve the individuality of each business. But if we find complementarity and gains, that's, for instance, true in the buying of assets. So complementary, good, but individuality better. I think has answered the question. Okay, Ben, anyone else? Let's go online. 2 seconds. In addition to the payroll laws, we as entrepreneurs, and I think that's the major difference of JSL, we want the best costs, the best efficiency. Taxes, are there. We are not taxpayers. We are people that pass on taxes to those that pay us. And basically, this is just a new tax that you have to pass on. This is what we believe. And we believe the trucker law is going to be revisited. The trucker union is taking a look at that, and they are asking for the law to be revisited. But if it doesn't happen, we pass on prices. This is part of our structure. Okay, so we have one question from Citibank, André. 2 areas of ours. First, he asks, who are your top competitors in warehousing? And 2, talking about car transportation. It seems that it's an industry with little technology and ready for disruption. Cars are not tracked. This is something you talked about. So if you could talk about warehousing and the transportation of new cars. Okay, warehousing, we have some competitors. DHL is a name that you know, but we don't have any giant players. DHL may be a giant internationally, but not in Brazil. TPC competes with DHL hand by hand. And I think this is an area that has huge potential to grow, precisely because we do not have any major player saying, this is my thing. Quite the opposite. TPC is very knowledgeable, is getting contracts. JSL in some specific markets has won some bids. So this is a market we are focusing on our targets for 2024. New cars transportation, Fernando can talk about that. There are some markets in Brazil, in cargo, that they are a bit more closed because of their characteristics. They need a specific trailer, you have a specific union, and that makes the market a bit more closed. It's hard to tell whether this is going to change, if it's going to be more open or not. That depends on several specific sectors. What we want is to be prepared if it happens. Important to say, we as JSL are inserted in the segment with Transmoreno, that's specific in the sector, and also with FJSL that works with GM internationally. Fernando, would you like to add anything? Here again, I'm talking as a shareholder and a board member, and also part of the history of the company. Quite modestly, I do not see any company that's positioned as JSL because of its diversification, and that can really enjoy the possibility of organic growth and consolidation. Transmoreno in brand new cars, GPC in warehousing. But if tomorrow, car transportation changes because, it is the OEMs, it is the customers that really make the change. And if it happens, I think JSL is positioned differently from anyone to enjoy that. And in warehousing, just one point I think is very important to make. The role of JSL is to operate warehousing. It is a service provider. It is not to build or to own warehouses. We are service providers, not investors, okay? Just to make it clear. Yeah, quite the opposite. When there is a recent case, a customer in Estrela, and we partnered with companies to have built-to-suit services. Okay, our time is up. We have one final question, and then we're going to close, okay? Congratulations on your event. This is a question from Welfer. I would like to know succession of your C-level and managers of the acquired company. Since people are crucial and you have separate independent companies, how do you make the succession of these people? Again, I'm talking as a board member, as a chairman. The other day, you saw a succession of Movida, and we're very happy about that. I love Renato. He did an excellent job. He contributed to the development. He made a choice, but within the Simpar ecosystem, we have a huge succession program. You see successions of CFOs and CEOs, but this is part of the day-to-day of the company. What happened to Thiago? Eduardo, we started together renting cars. How long ago? We rented trucks, and today he leads an important commercial department of JSL. So we have an agenda. We're always talking about people. I devote my time to people. I have a daughter that is the head of people and culture at Simpar, and we have a people committee at Simpar, and we see the positions of everyone, and we consider alternatives. This is an ongoing discussion. My succession also, the whole restructuring was also part of my own succession. And this is something that we do very dynamically, training people. And I'll be honest with you, Ramon is very valuable, Guilherme, but our team, people who are on the field, many people like Thiago, they make the business happen. More and more, we have a mission. But the mission of our day-to-day is really contribute to those that make it happen at the front end. They are the real business owners. And Ramon, of course, is paying attention to his succession, as I am. Not yet, but we have
all the triggers in place. We're always
company.
ready. This is what we truly believe. People can make a difference. You may lack one asset or something, but we need customers, our team, those that fund us, and those of you. And we want to continue to receive your trust, looking at people and prepare the succession to find someone that can do just as well or even better. When we say we have separate administration, we have some side movements. At TPC, there's someone from the Peoples that left Fadel. At IC, a JSL director was transferred over there. The more companies you have, the more career paths open up. And we want to encourage that very naturally from JSL to an acquired and vice versa, or from an acquired company to another acquired company. It's an ecosystem. That's it, Edson. If your question was not answered The IR team will be replying those questions over email. APIMEC director will be presenting an award. Just bear with us for a second. Ramon will be awarded. Mara Limongi. This is the compliance seal. Congratulations on this wonderful event. Most analysts were here last week for Simpar Day. So this is the JSL 3-year seal. But our partnership started 13 years ago, ever since the first IPO of the group. This is very important to analysts. This is proof that you've been with us every single year in a country filled with economic crises. That means you're here to stay and you're always disclosing what's going on. This is very important to the market. Congratulations once again for that commitment with governance. Thank you. Thank you for the partnership. You can add another 13 years in that long history. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mara. Before we come to a close, I think you can make your closing remarks. All right. In conclusion, once again, thank you. We want to be as dynamic as we can, but there's so much information. In conclusion, this is working. Let me just go back one slide. Here's my question to you. Why invest in JSL? Two things. One of them, you know way better than I do. When we had the IPO, you priced the company of almost 9 times the EBITDA. If we apply the same logic, the same rationale, share prices have fluctuated. The share price should be 27, a simple rule of 3. I'm not an investor. I'm an engineer. It's very basic calculation there. But my second point, and that may be even more important, I'm not going to beat that to a pulp. I'm not speaking as a JSL executive, but as an investor, as one of the largest shareholders. So here's what attracted me, what convinced me. That may convince you and your investors. Selling Fadel has nothing to do with my joining JSL. I sold Fadel, fine. We made the negotiation just like any other company, and life goes on. I was already thinking about retirement. I have at least 10 nicer things to do instead of running a company. But 6 months down the road, and then Fernando invited me. My initial response was no. It makes sense to sell a company and work for JSL. But what actually convinced me was the purpose. I am challenge driven, just like any other person. We need the purpose. Money is just a consequence. And Fernando came to me and said, no, that's fine to run a bigger company, but I'm too old to be that vain. We're a 2.2 billion company, but we'll be a 12 billion company by 2025. He's not here. I can't say that very clearly. I didn't believe him right then. And Fernando showed me his strategic planning. If you know Fernando, it's not a PowerPoint presentation. He puts out these notes that come out of his pocket. It's just amazing. It made sense. He talked about the strategy, M&As, organic growth strategy, and all that. That makes sense to me. I said, wait a minute. To be part of that, to help write that history, that's very nice. And I confessed, how can we become a 12 billion company from a 10.8? That was the guidance. 10.8. 12 is what he told me. That's a private guidance. I had worked for Fadel for 20 years. I'm very proud of what myself and my partner did. He's here today. He remains a partner. He purchased JSL shares. 20 years of Fadel, very proud of what we did. And we had a plan just before we sold the company. We had a plan to sell 1 billion in 2025. 1 billion in 2025. That would be just wonderful. From 3 to 12 was quite a jump. Look at what we've done in 3 years. We're a 10 billion, but way more than that. We've tripled our size, not changing the financial health of the company. We wouldn't move from a leverage of 3. We remain at that level with a downward bias, indeed. Results are better. This is just wonderful. We say it's possible. We're not promising anything. It's not guidance at all. We're saying that we can become a 21 billion company by 2026. This is outstanding. As a shareholder, I said, well, that's a market that is huge, a huge potential, just like we've shown you. As an investor, I feel working in a business that is a comet, so to speak. It's a rocket. There's no stopping us. And I mean on the positive side. There's no stopping us, but there's some control, there's some direction, most importantly. I've been saying that day in, day out. I said that during the Simpar Day. Those that worked for Fadel heard me say that. Fernando mentioned it briefly. Because deep down, different ways of thinking are fine, provided that your values are similar. Customers, people, and results. These are the basic 3 pillars. We're very strong in the excellence. We deliver our investment capacity. We've talked about people. I talked about it a lot. Fernando did so. I truly believe that our business depends on people and their motivation, believing in the same purposes, and having people looking at the same direction. So it's an army working for the same results. And results per se. Better leveraging, better interest rates, better management processes with better results. So in the past 3 years, I've been with this company. This capacity is infinite. It's not because of me or Guilherme. It's the team that makes a difference. That what makes me, as an investor, willing to invest in this company. I think you put it brilliantly. We are out of time, so I think it's about time we thank everyone. Thank you. Thank you for those of you attending online. Thank you so much for attending. And thank everyone for all of you, 30,000 people that made all this possible. Thank you. Would like to thank the executives, to everyone, the press. So we'll now have our cocktail right here. Cocktails be right here where we are. Thank you so much. Not water, right? Water and juice. Thank you.